When you use a connector, how does it remember your sign in? Where does it actually make the connection? Today, Shyam is going to share some of the secrets of the Power Platform connector infrastructure and how it works today on PowerCat Live. Welcome to PowerCat Live. My name is Phil Topness with the PowerCat team, and I'm here with Shyam Sunder, Principal Software Engineering Manager on the Power Automate team. Hey, Shyam.
Hey, Phil. How are you?
I'm well. Thanks for being here. But before we start talking about how connectors really work under the covers, talk a little bit about how you got into this team and your path through Microsoft.
Definitely. So I've from childhood, I like Microsoft products. So for me, just out straight out of the college, I joined Microsoft. So it's been 16 years since then. I've been through Microsoft with different teams. And in this connector space, I've been in this connector space for last 5 to 6 years now.
We're going to talk about how connectors work in Power Apps and Power Automate. What is a connector?
So a connector is a wrapper over a REST API. It's a formal definition of a REST API. What it allows you to consume a REST API in a manner that can be consumed in Power Apps, Power Automate, and various low-code, no-code platform that Microsoft has.
So connectors then create connections, which is often confused, right? Mm-hmm. And so how do the two relate?
So a connector is, if you see, it's a static entity, right? It's same whether you basically use or I use, right? So the distinguishing thing there is the connection part, right? It's a runtime instance of a connector, if you want to call it in very simple terms, right? Because when you create a connector, when you create as I said, the connector, the behind the scene, the Swagger, as well as the API is the same, but how does it knows that it needs to get the data for you versus me? That is controlled by connections. And a simple example is when you create a connection to Outlook, you will sign in with your own credential, and that's how it knows hey, for this particular connection, which is using Office 365 connector, I need to get the emails for your account. Same thing when I use the exact same connector and I create a connection using my credentials, it now knows that hey, I need to use the system knows that I need to use my credential to get the email from my account. So behind the scene, the connector entity is still the same. It's a static thing. It's the exact same code. Everything is same. But when you actually bind it with the connection at runtime, it basically figures out for which user it needs to get the data.
And when we look at the user interface, these all look pretty simple, but behind the scenes, there's a lot going on. What's happening under the covers with these?
Definitely. There are a lot of things going on. Let's talk about Power Automate. You drag and drop an action, you say, and you create a flow, and at the end of the day, you save that flow. When you say run it, what happens behind the scene is Power Automate makes a runtime call. That runtime call has the connector ID that is being used in the flow. It has the operation, which operation you are going to use. Mm-hmm. And it also has a connection ID. A connection ID is generated when you create a connection. That way, the system knows, as we discussed, right? The system knows for which user it needs to fetch the data. So this information, when the REST call is made, this information is present in the REST call. Then the REST call goes to our API management gateway. So think about API management gateway is basically acts as a proxy where the call comes and then it figures out depending upon the information we have passed, connector ID, operation, the connection ID, it figures out how it needs to route the call to the backend API. So what first thing that happens is when it gets a connection ID, we have a token store inside a API gateway. Using that connection ID, it actually fetches the credentials that needs to be used for this call.
So what is a token store? What's getting stored in there?
So in this case, it depends basically depending upon the auth type that you're using in the connector. Mm-hmm. You will see different kind of information is stored. For example, let's say if you're using basic auth. In this case, the token store will store the username and password. If you're using API key, the token store will store the API key and how that API key needs to be sent, right? In header or query parameter. Mm-hmm. But if you're using OAuth, right, which is the most advanced and most complex type, sure. You will see when you log in to the system, you are signing in with your username and password, right? Mm-hmm. But behind the scene, because the way OAuth works, we are actually not storing your username and password in the token store. What we actually store is a user's authorization token, right? So what happens behind the scene when you create a connection for a OAuth, we have a system in place which goes and talk to the backend service and says hey, for this username and password, give me the authorization token. So that authorization token has the your roles, it has your scopes, like what scope, like permissions you have on a particular API.
Mhm.
Get the token back. We store that token in this auth store or token store. Along with that, we also have a refresh token. When the authorization token expires, we use this refresh token to get a new token, right? So it's a refresh. So that refresh token also gets stored in the token store. So depending upon, as I said, depending upon the credentials or like auth type that you're using, the token will store like one of the information that we talked about. Going back to the runtime context, right? So we said like you will when we get the call in API management gateway, we contact this token store, and from that token store, given a connection ID, we fetch the credential that needs to be used in the runtime call. Now, when we get the credential, the call again goes back to the API management gateway, and we use this credential that we got from the token store, and then we put it in the REST call that goes back to the backend service. So the RESTful API gets the call. It basically looks at like all these parameters. If everything looks good, it will return you the data. And then again, the data gets proxied back through API management gateway, and it goes back to the Power App. But let's say if there is something wrong, let's say your authorization token, you don't have access to something, or your authorization token has expired, right? Or is invalid. In that case, the backend API will give you a error code and will pass it back to the Power Automate or Power Apps as well.
So you had on the other slide, there are 550 plus connectors. They've grown a lot since you started in this team many, many years ago. And there's other options. Right now we have custom connectors, and now in the middle there are independent publisher connectors. So talk a little bit about the connector ecosystem that's surrounding this.
Sure, definitely. So as you said, like when I started in the team, like I think somewhere around 2016, we had like 10 or 12 connectors, and we were just trying to come up with a preview for Power Automate at the time, Power Automate, Power Apps, right? And at that point, all these connectors were actually built in-house, which means like our team used to build those connectors.
Mm-hmm.
We used to build them, we used to service them, and all those things. That actually continued, I think, for another year or so, where we basically had the critical mass at that point, like I think 140 odd connectors, where we thought like, hey, now we are ready. The platform has grown. Instead of building these connectors, we wanted to become a platform team where it's not just us who are building the connector, but like every developer or like at least the API owner, we start with the API owners. Every API owner should be empowered to come to the platform and build a connector for their APIs. We have added like more than 400 connectors. So if you see like the first 4 years in the journey, like we were able to build like 140 odd connectors, but like next 4 years, we were able to build like 3 times more connectors with that. So that was the power of like building into like making it a platform where third parties can come and build the connectors. So
and that doesn't even count all the custom connectors that people have made and are using.
Yep. So I'll go back to that one before, like, but I want to touch like another investment that we made recently in 2021, which is the community-led connectors. We call them independent publisher connectors. If you don't own the API, like we and you build the connector for that API, we classify them as a different kind of connector, which are called independent publisher connector. But now that truly multiplies the reach of the platform, because now every developer is a connector developer. We are already seeing a lot of interest in that area, and we have already seen, I think, close to 25 to 30 connectors got released in the last 2 to 3 months, which shows like the interest in that platform.
And your teammate Natalie did a video on the independent publisher connector program, so I'll put it on the screen. People can watch her interview as well.
Yep. Yeah, Natalie is driving that, so she's doing a great job on that one. So yeah, so take a look at the video, and I'll encourage you to come and try and write the connector for the platform.
Yeah.
So yeah, these are the two connectors or two different kind of connectors that I talked about. And there is a third kind of connector that you mentioned, the custom connectors. And this connector by default is available only to you. These custom connectors are only available to you. You can share it with other people in your environment and within your tenant, but like they are not available to everyone in Power Automate. So you can control like who sees it, who has access to it, right? So if you are more security conscious, you can start with the custom connector and still solve the problem. The connector, custom connector or certified connector or like independent publisher connector, they work exactly the same way. There's no difference there behind the scene. It's just a way like the only difference is being like who has access to it, like what's the scope of the connector in terms of like the reach of the connector, like who all has access to. That is the only difference, but runtime and everything works exactly the same way.
Well, Shyam, thanks for showing us behind the scenes on how connectors work. There's a lot going on, even though it's made really easy for makers. It's nice to finally see uncovered.
Yep. Thank you very much, Phil.
Now before you go, we are making new videos every week. Click this Microsoft logo to subscribe and you'll be the first to see them. And look over here for a couple of videos that can make you a Power Platform expert.